Hi, welcome to Thursday Ramble with Paula at Hikate's Crossing. Welcome. This is the first time you're here. Welcome back if you've been following my channel at all. Today I want to talk about the Celestine Prophecy. For those that haven't read the book at all or read the series, this is by James Redfield. This here, Celestine Prophecy. Okay, and it talks about the 9 insights, and even though it's a book that is a novel in a sort of a way, it allows us to look at some quite different aspects. I love this. I just want to read the back of it for you. A book that captures a spiritual moment. 3 decades of interest in modern physics, ecology, mystical religion, and interpersonal psychology finally synthesizing into a new spiritual common sense. Are we now beginning to live this new common sense? Can it become the dominant paradigm of the next century? The Celestine Prophecy, an adventure. An ancient manuscript has been found in Peru. Its contents 9 insights the human race is predicted to grasp as we enter an era of true spiritual awareness. In this gripping adventure tale, James Redfield offers a compelling vision of the new spiritual understanding that is emerging in human culture. You will instantly recognize the truth of the first insight. In each of our lives occur mysterious coincidences, sudden unexplained events that, once interpreted correctly, serve to guide and direct our actions. Join the adventure and let the synchronistic perception guide you through a daring search for the remaining insights. Each will be found in turn, and each will clarify how a growing link with the spiritual is relentlessly transforming human life, reading like a story of high adventure, but having the in-depth effect of a spiritual parable. The Celestine Prophecy will take you on a journey that will lighten your soul and connect you with a vision and an experience that is already changing the world. Have you read the book, and what did you feel? Now, what's really awesome is there isn't actually an experiential guide, which is quite cool. So this is a guidebook. You can look at why you are here, who will you meet, where are you going. A guide to your own personal adventure as revealed by the Celestine Prophecy. So I thought this was really cool. So just take a moment, take a breath, and be open to what I'm about to say. The 9 insights. I'm going to do the number 1, a critical mass. A new spiritual awakening is occurring in human culture, an awakening brought about by a critical mass of individuals who's experienced their lives as a spiritual unfolding, a journey in which we are led forward by mysterious coincidences. Number 2, the longer now. This awakening represents the creation of a new, more complete worldview, which replaces a 500-year-old preoccupation with secular survival and comfort. While this technological preoccupation was an important step, our awakening to life coincidence is opening us up to the real purpose of human life on this planet and the real nature of our universe. Number 3, a matter of energy. We are now experience that we live not in a material universe, but in a universe of dynamic energy. Everything extant is a field of sacred energy that we can now sense and intuit. Moreover, we humans can project our energy by focusing our intention in the desired direction. Where attention goes, energy flows, influencing other energy systems and increasing the pace of coincidences in our lives. Number 4, the struggle for power. Too often humans cut themselves off from the greater source of this energy, and so feel weak and insecure. To gain energy, we tend to manipulate or force others to give us attention and thus energy. When we successfully dominate others in this way, we feel more powerful, but they are left weakened and often fight back. Competition for scarce human energy is the cause of conflict between people. And I'm just going to do number 5, the message of the mystics. Insecurity and violence ends when we experience an inner connection with divine energy within, a connection described by the mystics of all traditions, a sense of lightness, buoyancy, and the constant sensation of love are measures of this connection. If these measures are present, the connection is real. If not, it is only pretended. Okay, to know more, you're going to have to read the book or look online. I'm sure there's lots of information online. What I love about this workbook is, as it goes through the 9 insight, it actually describes a little bit more. So just a little bit about this. Chapter 1, a critical mass that coincidences that shape our life. The mystery begins. In the Celestine Prophecy, the main character has an unexpected meeting with an old friend, just at the moment in his life when he is feeling disenchanted and thinking about changing direction. Charlene, newly arrived from a trip to Peru, where an ancient manuscript has been discovered, is able to shed some light on the cause of his restlessness. Our character, who remains nameless, is introduced to the first insight, becoming conscious of coincidences working in his life. Skeptical of the idea of a manuscript explaining the secret of human existence, he is nevertheless intrigued by the mystery. That night, after returning home, he has a dream about the nature of coincidences, and have they always involve the appearance of a person with information. Buoyed by his increasing interest, he books a flight to Peru. The first insight. Slowly, with a little fanfare, a global transformation is taking place, as described in the ancient teachings of the manuscript found in the Celestine ruins. The first sign that we are awakening to this deep inner call is a profound sense of restlessness. The restlessness may be described as dissatisfaction even after reaching goals, vague uneasiness, or a sense that something is missing. Once in a while, a chance event surprises and intrigues us. It's as if some higher purpose is being revealed, and for a moment we feel connected to a mystery that nevertheless eludes our grasp. The combination of inner searching, there must be more to life, and the occasional cosmic jostle, wow, what a strange coincidence, I wonder what that meant, is a powerful process. Mysterious and exciting coincidences are purposeful in moving us forward in our destiny. They make us feel more alive, as if there is some greater plan at work. And as more and more of us, a critical mass, become conscious of this mysterious movement of the universe in our individual lives, the more quickly we will discover the nature of human existence. If we open our minds and hearts, we will be part of the evolution of a new spirituality. So some thoughts there. What is coincidence? The first insight in the Celestine Prophecy tends to capture our attention and fire our imagination, because it taps into what mythic reality has always taught, that there is a golden key, a magical stranger, a meaningful dream, or an unexpected clue that appears to guide us effortlessly to the treasure or opportunity that we seek. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung called it the archetype of magical effect, and claimed that it was a universal trait in humans, recognizing that the important role that coincidences play in moving our lives along takes us back to the instincts of the alert, poised hunter praying for the emergence of quarry, and the deeply attuned, receptive state of a powerful shaman or medicine woman. Coincidences are the stuff of stories by firelight, and launching memories at weddings, and the tales of inordinate success and sublime irony. Life stories are studded by the mysterious byproducts of chance meetings, missed trains, book openings to a significant passage, ajar doors, overheard conversations, a meeting of the eyes across a crowded room. Most of literature and theatre wouldn't exist without such premises as two people meeting accidentally in a corridor or while waiting to board the ferry to Hong Kong. Much of the sometimes higgledy-piggledy nature of employment resumes can be explained by the effect of coincidental job opportunities that were not part of a career plan. I'm not going to read too much into it because I really want you to have the opportunity. I got these from a second-hand bookshop, so I think they're available from all sorts of places and inexpensive. Okay, book number 3 is The 10th Insight. The Celestine journey continues with a vision that could change your life and perhaps the world. In the exciting sequel to the incredible international bestseller The Celestine Prophesy, Charlene, the woman who first brought news of the discovery of an ancient Peruvian manuscript continuing the nine insights, has disappeared while exploring a forest deep in the Appalachian Mountains, is here in the rich setting of cathedral forests, wooded streams and majestic waterfalls that your adventure in search of the 10th insight begins. Like the Celestine Prophecy, which has sold more than 5 million copies worldwide, James Redfield's new book is both a page-turning adventure story and a parable for our times. Read it and understand more fully the significant role that intuition, synchronicity, and visualization can play in all our lives. As you read the 10th insight, you will finally begin to answer the big question that looms over all experience and in every heart. Why we are here, what are we to do, and where are we going? I'm just going to read a little bit of the 10th insight. The first chapter is Imagining the Path. I walked out to the edge of the granite overhang and looked northward at the scene below. Stretching across my view was a large Appalachian valley of striking beauty, perhaps 6 or 7 miles long and 5 miles wide. Along the length of the valley ran a winding stream that coursed through stretches of open meadowland and thick, colourful forests. Old forests with trees standing hundreds of feet high. I glanced down at the crude map in my hand. Everything in the valley coincided with the drawing exactly. The steep ridge on which I was standing, the road heading down, the description of the landscape and the stream, the rolling foothills beyond. This had to be the place Charlene had sketched on the note found in her office. Why had she done that? And why had she disappeared? Over a month had now passed since Charlene had last contacted her associates at the research firm where she worked, and by the time Frank Sims, her office mate, had thought to call me, he had become clearly alarmed. She often goes off on her own tangents, he had said, but she's never disappeared for this long before, and never when she had meetings already set with long-term clients. Something's not right. How did you know to call me? I asked. He responded by describing part of a letter found in Charlene's office that I had written to her months earlier, chronicling my experiences in Peru. With it, he told me, was a scribbled note that contained my number and telephone number. I'm calling everyone I know who is associated with her, he added. So far no one seems to know a thing. Judging from the letter, you're a friend of Charlene's. I was hoping you had heard from her. Sorry, I told him. I hadn't talked to her in 4 months. Even as I'd said the words, I couldn't believe it had been that long. Soon after receiving my letter, Charlene had telephoned and left a message on my answering machine, voicing her excitement about the insights and communicating on the speed with which knowledge of them seemed to be spreading. I remembered listening to Charlene's message several times, but had put off calling her back, telling myself that I would call later, maybe tomorrow or the day after, when I felt ready to talk. I knew at the time that speaking with her would put me in the position of having to recall and explain the details of the manuscript. I told myself I needed more time to think, to digest what had occurred. The truth, of course, was the parts of the prophecy still eluded me. Certainly I had retained the ability to connect with spiritual energy. Okay, let us continue. Okay, so I just was finishing off the 10th insight, reading a little bit about the book so you could see a little bit about it. Okay, so the last book in this series is called The Secret of Shambhala, which is in search of the 11th insight. Okay. So I'm going to read the back of this for you. When James Redfield wrote his #1 New York bestseller, The Celestine Prophesy, millions of readers passed it from hand to hand around the world. Okay, so now we continue. In the remote, snow-covered mountains near Tibet lies a community long thought to be a mere myth called Shambhala or Shangri-La. In this place is an insight that has been kept hidden for centuries, that can profoundly impact the way each of us lives our life. Your search for Shambhala begins with the words of a child and the vision of an old friend. They will lead you to Nepal and Tibet, where you will meet a secret sect that guards mysterious legends. Pursued by Chinese agents, you will traverse regions where anger and compassion struggle for ascendancy, and arrive at a place where the stunning reality of human prayer energy is revealed. Like all of James Redfield's books, The Secret of Shambhala has a parable effect. It will leave you determined to liberate your life, enhance the lives of others, and actively change the world. I'm just going to read a little bit. Just going to read The Fields of Intention, which is in chapter 1. The phone rang and I just stared at it. The last thing I needed now was another distraction. I tried to push it from my mind, gazing out the window at the trees and wildflowers, hoping to lose myself in the array of fall colours in the woods around my house. It rang again, and I got a vague but stirring image in my mind's eye of a person needing to talk with me. Quickly I reached over and answered it. "Hello?" It's Bill," a familiar voice said. Bill was an agronomy expert who had been helping me with my garden. He lived down the ridge, only a few hundred yards. "Listen, Bill, can I call you back later?" I said. "I've got this deadline. You haven't met my daughter, Natalie, yet, have you?" "Excuse me?" No reply. "Bill, listen," he finally answered. "My daughter wants to talk with you. I think it might be important. I'm not quite sure how she knows, but she seems to be familiar with your work. She says she has some information at a place that you'd be interested in, some location in the north of Tibet. She says that people there have some important information." "How old is she?" I asked. Bill chuckled on the other end of the line. "She's only 14, but she's been saying some really interesting things lately. She was hoping she could talk with you this afternoon before her soccer game. Any chance?" I started to put him off, but the earlier image expanded and started to become clear in my mind. It seemed to be part of a young girl and me talking somewhere near the big spring just up from her house. "Yeah, okay," I said. "How about 2 p.m? "That's perfect," Bill said. On the walk over, I caught sight of a new house across the valley on the North Ridge. That makes almost 40, I thought. All in the last 2 years. I knew the word was about the beauty of this bowl-shaped valley, but I really wasn't worried that this place would become overcrowded or that the amazing natural vision would be destroyed. Nestled right up next to the national forest, we were 10 miles from the closest town, too far away for most people, and the family who owned this land and now was selling selected house sites on the outer ridges seemed determined to keep the serenity of the place unspoiled. Each house had to be low-slung and hidden amid the pines and sweetgrass that defined the skyline. What bothered me more was the preference for isolation exhibited by my neighbours. From what I could tell, most were characters of the sort, refugees from careers in various professions, who had carved out unique vocational niches that allowed them to now operate on flexi-time or travel on their own schedules as consultants, a freedom that was necessary if one was to live this far out in the wilderness. The common bonds among all of us seem to be persistent idealism and the need to stretch our particular provisions by an infusion of spiritual vision, all in the best 10th insight tradition. Yet almost everyone in this valley stayed to themselves, content to focus on the diverse fields without much attention to community or the need to build on our common vision. This was especially true among those of different religious persuasions. For some reason, the valley had attracted people holding a wide range of beliefs, including Buddhism, Judaism, both Catholic and Protestant Christianity, and Islam. And while there was no hostility of any kind by one religious group towards another, there wasn't a feeling of affinity either. The lack of community, it concerned me because there were signs that a few of our kids were displaying some of the same problems seen in suburbia too. Too much time alone, too much video, and too much regard for the slights and put downs at school. I was beginning to be concerned that there wasn't enough family and community in their lives to push their peer problems into the background and keep them in proper perspective. Up ahead the path narrowed, and I had to make my way between two large boulders that edged right up to the sheer drop off of about 200 feet. Once past, I could hear the first gurgles of Philip's Spring, named by the fur trappers that first set up camp here on the late 17th century. The water trickled down several tiers of rocks into the lazy pool 10 feet across that had originally been dug out by hand. Successive generations had added features such as apple trees up near the mouth and mortared stone to reinforce and deepen the pool. I walked up to the water and reached down to cup some in my hand, rushing a stick out of the way as I leaned forward. The stick kept moving, slithering up the rock face and into a hole. Cottonmouth, I said aloud, stepping back and feeling the sweat pop out of my brow. There are still perils involved in living here in the wild, although not perhaps the ones that old man Philip faced centuries ago, when you could turn a corner on the path one day and come face to face with a big cougar guarding her young, or worse, a pack of wild boars with a 3-inch tusk that would slit your leg wide open if you didn't get up a tree fast enough. If the day was going especially bad, you might even come upon an angry Cherokee or a displaced Seminole who were tired of finding some new settler on his favourite hunting grounds and was harbouring the conviction that a large bite of your heart would stem the Europeans' tide forever. No, everyone alive in that generation, Native Americans and Europeans alike, faced direct perils that tested one's mental and courage in the moment. Our generation seemed to be dealing with other problems that are more related to our attitude toward life and the constant battle between optimism and despair. Everywhere are the voices of doom these days, showing us factual evidence that the modern Western lifestyle can't be sustained, that the air is warming, the terrorist arsenals growing, the forces dying, and the technology running wild into a kind of virtual world that makes our kids crazy and threatens to take us further and further into distraction and aimless tourism. Countering the viewpoint, of course, are the optimists who claim that history has been filled with doomsayers, that all our problems can be handled by the same technology that produced these perils, and that the human world has only begun to reach its potential. I stepped and looked out into the valley again. I knew that the Celestine vision lay somewhere in between these poles. It encompassed a belief in sustainable growth and human technology, but only if pursued by an intuitive move towards the sacred and an optimism based on a spiritual vision of where the world can go. One thing was certain: if those who believe in the power of vision were to make a difference, it had to begin right now, when we're poised in the mystery of the new millennium. The fact of it still awed me. How did we get lucky enough to be the ones alive when not only a century changed, but a 1,000-year period as well? Why us? Why this generation? I got the feeling the larger answers were still ahead. I looked around the spring for a moment, half expecting Natalie to be up here somewhere. I was sure this was the intuition I'd had. She'd been here at the spring, only I'd seemed to be looking at her through a window of some kind. It was all very confusing. When I arrived at her house, there seemed to be no one at home. I walked onto the deck of the dark brown, a frame, and knocked on the door loudly. No answer. Then, as I glanced around the left side of the house, somewhere grabbed my attention. I was looking down a rock pathway that led past Bill's vegetable garden and up to a small grassy meadow on the very top of the ridge. Had the light changed? I looked up at the sky, trying to figure out what had occurred. I'd seen a shift in the light in the meadow, as though the sun had been behind a cloud, and then had suddenly peeked out, illuminating that specific area. But there was no clouds. I strolled up the mountain and found the young girl sitting at the edge of the grass. She was tall and dark-haired, wearing a blue soccer uniform, and as I approached she jerked around, startled. "Didn't mean to scare you," I said. She looked away for a moment in the shy way a teenager might, so I squatted down to her eye level and introduced myself. She looked at me with eyes much older than I'd expected. "We aren't living the insights here," she said. I was taken aback. "What? The insights? We aren't living them? What do you mean?" She looked at me sternly. "I mean we haven't figured it out completely. There's more than we have to know." Well, it's not that easy. I suppose I couldn't believe I was being confronted by a 14-year-old like this. For an instant a flash of anger swept across me, but then Natalie smiled, not a large smile, just an expression at the edges of her mouth that made her endearing. I relaxed and we sat down on the ground. "I believe the insights are real," I said, "but they aren't easy. It takes time." She wasn't letting up. "But there are people who are living them now." I looked for a moment. "Where?" "In Central Asia, the Kunlun Mountains. I've seen it on the map." She sounded excited. "You have to go there. It's important. There's something changing. You have to go there now. You have to see it." As she said this, the expression on her face looked mature, authoritative, like that of a 40-year-old. I blinked hard, not believing what I was seeing. "You have to go there," she repeated. "Natalie," I said, "I'm not sure what you mean. Where you mean? What kind of place is it?" She looked away. "You said you saw it on the map. Can you show it to me?" She ignored my question, looking distracted. "What time is it?" she said, slowly, stuttering. 2:15. "I've got to go." "Wait, Natalie, this place you were talking about, I got to meet the team," she said. "I'm going to be late." She was walking fast now, and I struggled to reach her. "What about this place in Asia? Can you remember exactly where it is?" As she glanced back at me over her shoulder, I saw only the expression of a 14-year-old girl with her mind on soccer. You've got to read. So, today's ramble is all about the Celestine Prophecy. There is a workbook, companion book, experiential guide. There is the 10th Insight and the Secret of Shambhala. I totally recommend you reading them. I don't want to give you away too much information. I think I've given you away more than enough with what I've shared with you today already. So that's my ramble. I really recommend. There is on YouTube a Celestine Prophecy video, which is sort of a movie form, which I recommend you watch as well if you're interested. But definitely the books are amazing. I have them as reference all the time. I will read a little bit every now and then and work through them, and I just think they're amazing. They really are an amazing set of books. So there you are, Celestine Prophecy. Take care and blessed be. Oh, where is it gone? I can't stop it. What's going on here? Oh, there it is.